There comes a time in a woman's life when silence becomes her sanctuary and strength becomes her companion. When she learns that no one is coming to save her, and the only arms that will hold her steady are the ones attached to her own shoulders. There comes a dawn when she looks around and sees no outstretched hands, no open doors, no soft whispers to guide her way, and still, she rises. She rises because she must. She rises because the earth beneath her feet hums with the memory of every woman who rose before her. No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone. She rises not because she is unbreakable, but because she was broken and rebuilt herself with her own breath. The world told her she could not stand without being held, could not shine without being adored, could not win without being chosen. Yet here she stands whole in her solitude, magnificent in her independence, rich with the wealth of her own courage. A real woman learns that loneliness is not an emptiness to be filled by others, but a sacred space to be understood by herself. In the quiet of her nights, when the world sleeps and the heart aches for familiar voices, she hears a stronger sound, the drumbeat of her own spirit calling her name. She listens, and in that listening she finds her power. She learns to love the sound of her own soul speaking truth into the darkness. They said she needed love to be complete, but she found completion in her own reflection. They said she needed support to climb, but she learned to grow roots in the rocks and push through the soil toward the sun. They said she needed approval, but she smiled at her own reflection and said, "Child, your approval is enough." She walks through the valley where others fear to go, not because she is fearless, but because she has learned that fear is not her enemy. Fear is the whisper that tells her she is still alive, still capable of more. She has danced with fear until it became familiar, and she has used it as a mirror to see how brightly her light can shine when no one else believes. No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone. She is not cold, but she has learned the warmth of her own fire. She is not bitter, but she has tasted the truth that not everyone will walk beside her. Some will walk away when her light grows too strong. Some will dim her flame to feel tall in her shadow. But a real woman does not beg for company. She builds her own tribe within her heart. When the world forgets her, she remembers herself. When they turn away, she turns inward. She gathers every wound, every disappointment, every lonely night, and she shapes them into a ladder. Step by step, pain becomes power. Step by step, loss becomes lesson. Step by step, the woman who once trembled now walks like thunder. She learns that love is not always gentle. Sometimes it is the harsh teacher that strips her of illusions and forces her to meet the raw truth of her own worth. Sometimes love is not what she receives, but what she becomes. She learns to love without possession, to give without losing herself, and to walk away without regret. For she knows that loving herself is the beginning of all freedom. There are those who will look at her strength and mistake it for hardness. They will say she does not need anyone. They will whisper that she has grown too proud. But pride is not her sin, it is her armor. It is the robe she wears when the world tries to undress her of her dignity. Pride is her way of saying, "I will not be defined by what I lost, but by what I built." She has learned that support is not always a shoulder. Sometimes support is a prayer whispered through tears. Sometimes it is the decision to get up when her body says stay down. Sometimes it is the small victory of brushing her hair, putting on her shoes, and facing another day with quiet grace. She knows that support can come from within, the steady hand of her own will holding her upright. No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone. She has turned her solitude into a symphony. Her laughter echoes in empty rooms. Her voice carries through closed doors. She is the writer of her own story, and each chapter begins with the same truth: I am enough. She remembers the days when she begged for kindness, when she searched for love in the faces of those who could not see her worth. But she also remembers the day she stopped begging. The day she looked into the mirror and said, "The love I've been searching for is right here, breathing." She realized that she was the dream she had been waiting for, the miracle she had been praying over. The world may call her strong as if it were a compliment, but she knows it is also a burden. Strength is not what she wanted, it is what she became when she had no other choice. Still, she wears it well. She carries her scars like medals and her tears like jewels. For every wound that tried to bury her has become a seed that made her bloom. When they said she would fall without support, she learned to balance on the winds. When they said she would crumble without love, she learned to draw sweetness from solitude. When they said she would never make it alone, she turned their doubt into the rhythm of her march. She moves now with a different kind of grace. The grace of one who has seen storms and refused to drown. She knows that the rain cannot wash away her spirit. It only cleanses the path for her next rise. Her steps are slower, wiser, deliberate. She does not rush anymore to please the world. She walks to her own heartbeat. There are mornings when she wakes and the weight of her world feels too heavy to bear. But even then she rises. She rises because she has seen darkness and knows that dawn always comes. She rises because she remembers that her ancestors prayed for her to stand where she stands now. She rises because she has a purpose greater than her pain. She does not chase love anymore. She attracts it with her peace. She does not beg for attention. Her silence speaks louder than any noise. She does not explain her worth. Her existence is the explanation. The world may not understand her, but it cannot ignore her. She has become the poem she once sought to read. No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone. Her strength is not loud, it hums quietly beneath her ribs. Her power is not displayed, it is lived. She is not waiting to be saved. She has already saved herself 1,000 times in 1,000 unseen ways. Each time she fell and rose again, she rewrote the definition of resilience. She has learned to be her own friend. To sit with her silence and not call it loneliness. To dine with her thoughts and not call it despair. To walk alone and still feel accompanied by her purpose. For she knows that solitude is not punishment. It is preparation. Preparation for the life that is hers alone to live, the dream that only her hands can build. She knows the world sometimes fears a woman who stands on her own. They will call her too much, too bold, too confident, too independent. But she smiles, because she knows that too much is exactly what she was born to be. Too much fire for those who prefer ashes. Too much truth for those who live in denial. Too much woman for those who do not yet know how to honor one. The world will test her. It will whisper that she is alone because she is unworthy. It will try to shame her for walking alone. But she knows the truth. She knows that some journeys can only be taken solo. That some mountains were made for her feet alone. That some crowns can only be fitted by the hands that earned them. And so she walks her path with a quiet smile and a lifted chin. She gathers her dreams like wildflowers, not caring who notices. She builds her peace from scratch, using the same hands that once wiped away her tears. She paints her future with colors the world said did not exist for her. And when the night comes, she does not fear it, for she has learned to glow in the dark. Every wound has become wisdom. Every disappointment has become direction. Every heartbreak has become harvest. She is not bitter. She is blooming. She does not curse what left her. She blesses what stayed. The fire within her chest, the faith in her soul, the unshakable knowing that she was always enough. No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone. She does not wait for permission. She does not apologize for existing loudly. She does not shrink to make others comfortable. She stands unbent, unbroken, untamed. Her story is not a tragedy. It is a song of survival, sung in the key of power. She remembers the days when her tears watered her own garden, when pain was her only company, and when silence was her teacher. But from that soil of suffering grew a garden of grace. The same woman who once whispered, "I can't," now roars, "I am." The same woman who once hid her light now shines so fiercely that the world cannot look away. And when she looks back at all she has endured, she does not see weakness, she sees wings. Wings that carried her through nights of doubt, wings that lifted her above the noise, wings that remind her she was never grounded, only preparing to fly. She walks in truth now. Her joy is her rebellion, her peace is her protest. Her happiness is not a gift given to her. It is the garden she built with her own hands. She waters it daily with self-respect and watches it bloom in every season. The world once told her she was alone, but she smiles because she knows that being alone and being lonely are not the same. Alone is freedom. Alone is clarity. Alone is where she met her truest self and realized she was never without love, because she was love in her purest form. She does not measure her worth by how many people stay. She measures it by how faithfully she stands. She does not count her supporters, she counts her blessings. And the greatest blessing of all is knowing that she survived everything meant to destroy her. So when the storms return, as they always do, she does not run. She opens her arms and welcomes the rain, because she knows it will only make her grow stronger roots. When the winds blow, she does not resist, she dances. When the world doubts her, she does not defend herself, she lets her life speak. No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone. She carries generations of strength in her bones, wisdom in her words, and grace in her walk. She is the answered prayer of those who could only dream of such freedom. She is her own revolution. When she speaks, the ground listens. When she moves, the air shifts. When she loves, she heals worlds unseen. For her strength is not only for herself, it becomes a light for others still learning to rise. And so she stands rooted and radiant, unafraid of the journey ahead. She has learned that real love does not complete her. It complements her. Real support does not define her. It celebrates her. And even in the absence of both, she remains whole. She has become her own sun, rising again and again, unbothered by the shadows that try to linger. For she knows a woman who rises alone is never truly alone. She carries the spirit of every woman who ever dared to stand when she could have fallen. She carries the legacy of every soul that whispered, "Keep going." No support, no love, no problem. A real woman rises alone, and when she rises, the world rises with her. A woman's true power is revealed when no one stands beside her, yet she still stands tall. The world loves to praise the woman who smiles in company, who shines when the room is filled with approval, but rarely do they see the beauty of the woman who stands alone. When the hands that used to hold her fall away, when the voices that used to cheer her go silent, and when the eyes that once looked upon her with warmth turn indifferent, she does not crumble. She takes a breath so deep that even the heavens pause, and she gathers herself piece by piece. In that gathering, she discovers that her spine is made of steel, that her heart beats to its own rhythm, and that her soul bows to no one but truth. She begins to understand that strength is not born from applause, nor does courage come from being seen. It rises quietly in the stillness of nights when she has only her own voice to lean on. It's in those moments of aloneness that she finds her reflection, raw, unpainted, unafraid. The world may not celebrate her solitude, but it is in solitude that she finds her power, a power untouched by validation or praise. She learns that she can carry her burdens without an audience, heal without witnesses, and rebuild without applause. There's a sacred fire in her, one that flickers not for attention but for endurance. Each time life tests her, she does not plead for rescue. She adjusts her crown and steadies her breath. The storms that rage around her are loud, but she knows the quiet voice inside her is stronger. She may stumble, she may weep, but she does not stay down for long. Every tear that falls plants a seed, and from those seeds grow gardens of wisdom. She becomes her own guide, her own comfort, her own champion. The woman who once believed she needed others to stand learns that the ground beneath her is her ally. The earth supports her steps, the sky witnesses her rise, and the air around her carries her name in silent reverence. She begins to realize that standing tall is not about defiance. It is about remembering who she is when the noise fades. She is the pillar and the foundation, the question and the answer. When she stands tall alone, she is no longer waiting to be seen. She becomes the sight itself. Her posture becomes poetry. Her silence becomes scripture. She walks with the grace of one who has faced the fire and found herself still whole. The world will look and wonder where she found her strength, but they will never understand that it was born in the moments when no one stood beside her. It was born in the quiet victories, the invisible battles, the long nights where she whispered her own name back to herself to remember she still existed. Her strength was not given, it was claimed. Her power was not borrowed, it was built. Solitude is not her weakness, it is her sacred ground where strength takes root. The world often mistakes her quiet for emptiness, her peace for isolation, her stillness for sadness. But solitude is her sanctuary, the place where she meets herself without distraction, without noise, without the weight of anyone's expectations. It is there that she learns the true language of her soul, the rhythm of her own heartbeat, the melody of her unspoken dreams. In that sacred space she is not lonely, she is becoming. She listens to the whispers of her spirit, and they tell her that everything she needs to rise is already within her. When the world grows loud and demanding, when the noise of others' opinions threatens to drown her truth, she retreats into her solitude like a queen returning to her throne. There she breathes in her power again. There, she finds that silence can be a friend, a mirror, a teacher. In that stillness she sows the seeds of her future. The woman who once feared being alone now finds comfort in her own company. She sits with her thoughts and learns to make peace with them. She does not run from her reflection. She studies it, honors it, forgives it. She realizes that solitude is not the absence of love. It is the beginning of it. It is in solitude that she builds the courage to walk her own path, unguarded, unafraid. She learns that she is not defined by who stands beside her, but by who she becomes when no one is watching. The quiet gives her clarity. It sharpens her vision, strengthens her will, and softens her heart in the right places. She discovers that she can create joy from within, that she can fill her own cup, and that the peace she has built for herself cannot be taken by anyone. She starts to see solitude as a sacred ceremony. Each morning spent alone becomes an act of worship, each quiet night a prayer answered in her own voice. She does not fill her days with noise to avoid her thoughts. She allows her thoughts to guide her like stars through the dark. Her solitude becomes the soil where resilience grows, watered by reflection and warmed by self-respect. The more time she spends in her own presence, the more she understands her power. She begins to trust her intuition, to follow her instincts, to rely on her own wisdom. Solitude no longer frightens her. It fortifies her. It becomes the sacred ground where her confidence blossoms, where her creativity flourishes, and where her spirit learns to dance freely again. She stands in her silence like a tree stands in the wind, rooted, graceful, unshaken. Those who see her might not understand where her calm comes from, but she knows. It comes from knowing herself deeply, from listening to her own truth, from realizing that she was never incomplete. It comes from the peace that only solitude can teach. Every wound that tried to silence her became the rhythm of her rising. Pain came to her dressed in many forms. Loss, rejection, betrayal, disappointment, and each time it arrived, it demanded her attention. It broke her open, tested her limits, stripped her of illusions. Yet even as she bled, something inside her whispered that this breaking was not her end. The wounds that cut the deepest were the same ones that revealed her strength. Every hurt became a lesson, every scar became a map, and every tear became a seed from which her power grew. She learned to stop cursing her pain and started listening to it. Beneath its ache, she discovered her own resilience, steady and quiet, waiting to rise. There were nights when she felt the weight of her hurt pressing heavy on her chest, nights when the silence screamed louder than any voice could. But even in those moments, she felt a small spark refusing to die. That spark was her will. That spark was her soul insisting, "You were made for more than this suffering." So she began to turn her wounds into wisdom. Instead of running from her pain, she faced it, looked it in the eyes, and said, "Teach me." And it did. It taught her where she had given too much, where she had trusted too easily, where she had forgotten her worth. Her healing was not graceful, it was messy, raw, and slow. There were days when she fell backward, days when she doubted her strength, and days when she wondered if she would ever feel whole again. But even in her stumbling, she was rising. Healing is not a straight path, it is a spiral that circles through pain and peace until the heart learns to sing again. She began to realize that the same pain that tried to bury her was also shaping her into something unbreakable. The wounds became rhythm because they taught her how to move through life with grace and fire. Each scar beat like a drum, reminding her that survival has a sound, the sound of footsteps continuing forward despite the ache. Her story became music, each note carrying a piece of her struggle and a melody of her triumph. Where there was once silence, there was now song. a song of becoming, of endurance, of faith that refused to fade. She began to wear her scars not as shame, but as symbols of what she has overcome. The world may see the marks of her pain, but she sees the record of her rising. Each wound is proof that she lived through what was meant to destroy her, and came out wiser, softer, stronger. Her pain did not silence her. It gave her a new voice, one that speaks not from fear but from knowing. She does not hide her scars anymore, she lets them shine, for they are the rhythm that carries her forward. Love may leave, support may vanish, but her spirit remains her constant companion. The world has shown her that nothing outside herself is promised, that people can disappear like shadows at sunset, and that love can fade without warning. Yet even in the emptiness left behind, she discovers something unshakable within her, the quiet pulse of her own soul that refuses to abandon her. When affection dissolves and company departs, she does not collapse. She listens to that steady rhythm inside her, the one that says, "You still have you." It is the voice that guided her through lonely nights, that lifted her when the ground gave way, that reminded her she was never truly alone. She begins to understand that every connection in her life is temporary, except the one she has with her spirit. Friends may change, lovers may leave, promises may break, but the relationship she builds with herself is eternal. That spirit within her is loyal, patient, and wise. It knows her even when she forgets who she is. It stays when everyone else walks away. It holds her when her hands tremble and whispers truth when her mind fills with doubt. This bond with her inner self becomes her shelter, her compass, her home. She learns to trust that spirit more than fleeting emotions. When confusion surrounds her, she closes her eyes and listens. There, beneath the noise, she finds calm. She begins to speak to herself with gentleness, to treat her own soul as sacred, to honor her presence instead of apologizing for it. What once felt like emptiness now feels like space, space to breathe, space to rebuild, space to rediscover joy in her own company. She learns that being alone is not being abandoned. It is being in conversation with her truest self. As love fades and support shifts, she no longer chases after what leaves. She thanks it for its lesson and continues walking forward. Her spirit teaches her that everything that departs clears the way for growth. It reminds her that loss is not punishment, it is redirection. The spirit that lives inside her cannot be taken, cannot be silenced, cannot be broken. It is the voice that has carried her through every ending and every beginning. With time, she realizes that her spirit is not separate from her strength. It is the very essence of it. It moves her to rise when she feels weary, to smile when tears are near, to believe when evidence is scarce. That spirit has been her oldest friend, her deepest love, her constant truth. It reminds her that even when love leaves and support falls away, she still carries something divine within her. Something that does not depend on the approval of others. Something that cannot be replaced or removed. Her spirit is her forever companion, the quiet witness of her journey, and the steady light that leads her back to herself each time the world turns dark. The world may doubt her worth, but her reflection speaks truth louder than any crowd. There are days when whispers follow her name, when judgments float in the air like dust, when eyes watch her not with admiration but with suspicion. People will question how she walks so sure, how she smiles without validation, how she continues to rise without approval. They will measure her worth by their own limited vision, but she has learned that no one else can define her value. When she stands before the mirror, she sees what they cannot see. The strength behind her gentleness, the courage beneath her calm, the fire behind her silence. Her reflection tells the story that the world refuses to read. She remembers when she used to shrink to fit into spaces too small for her spirit, when she tried to prove her worth through kindness that was never returned, through effort that was never acknowledged. But the mirror taught her differently. It showed her that worth is not something to be earned, it is something to be recognized. It is written in the way she carries herself through storms, in the way she keeps loving even after being hurt, in the way she keeps believing even when her heart is tired. The reflection looking back at her became her reminder that she has always been enough, even when the world failed to see it. There are moments when doubt creeps in, soft and familiar, It tells her she is too much or not enough. But she has learned to quiet that voice by looking deeply into her own eyes. There she finds a truth that cannot be undone by opinion or rejection. She sees the evidence of her journey, the battles fought in silence, the victories no one clapped for, the tears that dried into strength. Her reflection becomes her witness, her proof, her affirmation. It tells her that even if the world doubts her, she must not doubt herself. She no longer chases approval because she has found something greater, self-recognition. She sees the beauty in her flaws, the magic in her resilience, the power in her persistence. When others fail to clap, she still celebrates herself. When others fail to see her worth, she does not dim her light. Her reflection has become her truth teller, her friend, her teacher. It reminds her that she was never meant to be ordinary, never meant to seek permission to exist fully. So she faces each day with quiet confidence. She looks in the mirror not to fix herself, but to honor herself. The world may still doubt, but doubt has no power here. Her reflection speaks louder than their disbelief, stronger than their criticism, clearer than their noise. In her own eyes, she sees the woman she has become, a woman of grace, grit, and glory, standing tall in her truth, unbent by the weight of doubt, radiant in the light of her own certainty. A real woman does not chase the light, she becomes it. She no longer wanders through the world searching for a glow to guide her, no longer stretches her hands toward distant stars, hoping one might fall into her palms. She has learned through trial and tenderness, through heartbreak and healing, that the radiance she sought in others was never missing. It lived inside her from the beginning, silent and soft, waiting for the moment she would turn inward and recognize it. When the world dimmed around her, when voices she once trusted faded, when paths she depended on vanished under her feet, she did not collapse. She paused. She breathed. She allowed the darkness to settle so her inner flame could rise without competition. It began as a whisper of warmth inside her chest, the kind that feels like courage taking its first breath. Slowly, steadily, it grew brighter, pulsing with truth, fed by every moment she chose herself over fear, every time she stood instead of surrendering. Her light is not borrowed, not reflected, not handed to her by another soul. It is born of her resilience, shaped by the choices she made when no one was watching. It comes from the tears she wiped with her own hands, the nights she held herself together, the mornings she rose with trembling legs yet refused to stay down. Every scar she carries glows like a lantern, illuminating the parts of her story that once felt too painful to revisit. Her radiance is not perfect. It does not need to be. It is honest. It is earned. It is hers. People see her now and think her glow is effortless, as if light simply follows her like a loyal shadow. They do not see the years she spent in confusion, questioning her worth. They do not see the silent battles she fought, the moments she doubted whether she would ever rise again. But she rose, and in rising she learned that light is not something one chases. It is something one becomes through persistence, vulnerability, and truth. The glow others admire is the result of countless times she chose faith instead of fear, growth instead of bitterness, love instead of resentment. She stopped seeking approval in the eyes of those who could not see her. She no longer bends herself into shapes that please the world. She stands as she is, unapologetically luminous. Her light is not loud or boastful. It is the calm in her voice, the softness in her gaze, the certainty in her steps. It is the fire of a woman who knows her worth and walks in it. She does not seek recognition. She shines because shining is what the healed parts of her do naturally. Her glow is her declaration that she has survived what tried to destroy her, and she has emerged not dimmed but blazing. She moves through life like sunlight slipping through curtains at dawn, quiet but impossible to ignore. Her laughter warms the air. Her kindness softens the edges of every room. Her presence invites others to breathe deeper, to stand taller, to believe more fiercely in their own strength. She does not shine to be admired. She shines to remind others that they, too, carry light. And even when she walks into places heavy with doubt, or drenched in shadows, she does not shrink. Shadows cannot swallow a woman who has learned to illuminate herself. There was a time she dimmed herself to make others comfortable, shrinking so that no one felt overshadowed by her brilliance. She learned the hard way that dimming does nothing but suffocate the soul. She learned that people who are threatened by her light were never meant to walk beside her. Her glow does not belittle, it awakens. Her radiance does not overwhelm, it encourages. She embraces it fully now, knowing her brightness is a blessing, not a burden. Her light does not take away from others, it gives them permission to find their own. Her light grows from gentleness, from forgiveness, from clarity. It grows from the boundaries she finally honored, the self-respect she watered, the peace she protected like treasure. It grows from her understanding that healing is not a destination but a devotion. She honors her wounds as teachers, her strength as a companion, her softness as a superpower. She does not chase light because she knows it is woven through every fiber of her being. It shines in her words, in her silence, in her resilience, in her quiet promise to rise again and again. Wherever she walks, the atmosphere shifts, not because she demands attention, but because authentic light always changes the room. She does not need to convince anyone of her value. The truth radiates from her effortlessly. She is both the spark and the flame, both the sunrise and the steady noon. Her glow is not fleeting. It is sustained by the depth of her soul, by her connection to her purpose, by her refusal to be defined by darkness. She has become her own lighthouse, guiding herself through storms with grace and certainty. Her illumination deepens with every challenge she overcomes. Each time she chooses peace over chaos, her glow softens but grows stronger. Each time she chooses herself, her light becomes steadier. Each time she refuses to break, her glow intensifies. Her radiance does not depend on circumstances. It is rooted in her identity. She shines not only in victory but in struggle, not only in certainty but in surrender, not only in joy but in the sacred quiet of healing. She does not chase light because she understands that the truest illumination cannot be found in someone else's hands. It does not flicker with external change. It does not dim when others fail her. Her light is internal, eternal, and intimately hers. She wears it like a second skin, carries it like an inheritance, guards it like a legacy. She becomes the reminder that the brightest glow is born in the heart of a woman who has walked through darkness without losing her softness. She is the light in her own story, the fire in her own journey, the brightness in her own destiny. She is illumination made flesh, unbothered, unwavering, unafraid.